Anybody out there? Anybody hear me? All right, well, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Please let me know if you can hear me just fine. Video working, volume and everything. When I look away from the camera, I'm looking over at the text to see if everything's working. All right, looks like YouTube's good, but I can't tell if Facebook's working, so I'll just go ahead and get started. Well, welcome to the American Freethinker. Before I get started and actually explain what my podcast is going to be about and how it works, I want to kind of get a few things straight to make sure everybody understands. I am in no way a professional broadcaster. You'll probably figure that out pretty quickly. No classes in broadcasting, in videography, nothing. So there will probably be some bumps as I get used to this, but it's definitely something I wanted to get started. Second, I also do not have a degree in English. If there is such a thing, I don't have a degree in grammar, but I should be good enough. Plenty of papers written. I've made plenty of speeches in college, so it should be okay there. But I really don't want it to be that uptight. I really want this to turn into something nice and comfortable. So, that getting out of the way, what exactly is the podcast going to be? Well, I do want it to be a live call-in podcast. The main purpose is to have people call in and have conversation. I feel we need more conversation on topics. This will not be a show where I talk about the daily information, the daily stuff that's going on, because you can get that anywhere. You can get that on a talk radio show if that's what you want. I want this to be interactive, and I want it to be about the topics that have mattered to this country more and more today, I'm sure, all the way from the topic of abortion to the topic of the federal budget and everything in between. And I'm going to give out the phone number just before I announce the topics today. I think I actually put it in the notes below. But again, this will be every Sunday about 5 p.m. unless I have to work, and then I'll let you know. I want to develop a community of like-thinking people. In that, we all want free speech. We all want to either you enjoy listening to people debate and talk about the topics that matter, or you yourself want to call in and talk. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just politics. It can be politics, social issues. It can be personal issues. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a cross between Ben Shapiro and Dr. Phil. Okay, I'll explain that when I get into the actual American Freethinker part. So, as far as the show itself, like I said, I'm looking at Sunday, 5 p.m., call in, and the topics will be different each week that I will be discussing. But that doesn't mean you have to call in and talk about those topics. You can call in whatever topic you want. I have topics to talk about because I want to get things off my chest. But the important thing is to actually get people that want to call in and actually have a conversation. That's what I'm hoping for. Now, about the free thinker part of it. I do have on my website, theamericanfreethinker.com, on Facebook, as well as the YouTube, The American Freethinker, I have some videos out there, and that's what I started out with. I always wanted to do the live call-in, but it has actually taken this long for me to figure out how to do it and get all the equipment needed. They're about different topics. There's 10 of them. You can look at them, see if you like them, listen to them. They're only about maybe 15 minutes at the most, and you can kind of get a feel of where I'm coming from. But I don't think it'll take long for you to know that anyways. Those are the topics that I'm going to start with, because those are just 15-minute little quips. Since the live show is what I've always wanted, I'm just going to start right from the beginning. Why did I decide to do the American Freethinker? Well, to be honest with you, I got bored with talk radio. I got bored with it. After 29 years of listening to it, calling in, having maybe 30 seconds or so, a minute to actually talk to them, it got boring. I'm a truck driver, so I listen to stuff 10 hours a day, and I need stuff to stimulate my brain while I'm driving, so I don't get tired. And music doesn't do it. I start falling asleep for whatever reason. Talk radio helped, but again, I started getting bored with it. I didn't like how when people called in, you didn't have much time to actually talk about it. And then I got into Facebook a little more. Posting, talking politics, getting into arguments with people. But to be honest with you, and I think everyone knows, it gets really annoying posting arguments with people or trying to get your point of view across. And it was fine for a while. Not as far as truck driving, of course, but just getting my information out there and getting things off my chest. And that worked for a little while, but right around, and I'm sure everyone has the same issues. On a little side note here, I will try to look at my chats, okay, and kind of answer things if anybody has any questions. I may not be too good at that at first, but maybe I'll get better at it. And if every once in a while someone can just post any kind of a chat so that I know I'm still on and not just talking to myself, that'd be nice too. But anyways, back to the American Freethinker. So I got kind of, right around the time Trump started running for election, I did notice that the chats got meaner and meaner. No longer could you have just normal conversation on there as much as you can posting, which is annoying just in itself. But people just really started getting upset, and they just started calling names more than anything, and everyone noticed it, I'm sure. It just got extremely back and forth, calling names. One particular site that I used to go to a lot, won't name it, but every time he would post something from his news articles, I would then talk to him, post what I thought, and I would just get hit, just bombarded with pretty much just name calling or asking him to kick me off. And eventually, because I was using sites like Daily News or Daily Mail or whatever it's called with Ben Shapiro as my kind of proof, apparently he didn't like that. And of course, I got blocked like I have from many of my, what I would call Democrat Facebook friends. So that got old, and I still do it, but I don't like it. This is what I want. Conversation back and forth, and hopefully, eventually, it'll get to that, where people actually call in. But anyways, so then I noticed something called podcasts, which of course is what this is, but I didn't really know anything about it about a year ago. And the podcast that really kind of helped me stay awake truck driving because it was interesting and I was shocked at it was a guy named, how do we call it? Yeah, I'll be giving the phone number out as soon as I get done with this information, before I start talking about the actual topics. That way you can call in, talk about the topics I want to talk about or something else, and just kind of get things going. So I started the podcast, or I started listening to podcasts, and it was Joe Rogan. I don't know if anybody knows Joe Rogan, but obviously there are thousands of podcasts, but his was interaction. It was, he'd have a guest on, and they would just talk. Just nice, comfortable chatting. Anywhere from an MMA fighter to a neurologist to an astrophysicist, and it was fantastic. And I'm like, oh, that's great. This is what I enjoy, the back and forth. And so I started getting into more podcasts. But to be honest with you, people like the Ben Shapiro's of the world and Nick DiPaolo, comedian, great guy. It's just them talking. And again, it's not much different than talk radio, except for they're a little more interactive. They're a little more fun to listen to. Or the latest one was Dan Bongino. He's ex-Secret Service, knows a lot. He's a little more interesting. But again, it was Joe Rogan that really got me interested in that. And that's when I decided, okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. Of course, it turned out to be a lot more difficult than I thought. But I went ahead and decided to start doing it. So I named it the American Freethinker. Why the American Freethinker? Well, obviously, the American, because I'm an American. I am extremely supportive of America, best country in the world. The Freethinker, well, the reason why I call it Freethinker is because I believe I am. Okay, I may have a different definition of a Freethinker, a little twist on it, but to be honest with you, what a Freethinker is somebody who can, when somebody presents a topic to them or a conversation piece, they can be rational, kind of sit back, take it in. They can use logic and reason to dissect that point of view, or in other words, critical thinking. Now, that's where most people tend to get a little weary of it. They either don't want to take the time for critical thinking, and they just want to repeat whatever it is they heard on news or whatever. But critical thinking is where I believe I am the best at myself. That's what I like. That's what I enjoy doing. Critical thinking skills. I don't think it has anything necessarily to do with intellect. I'm obviously not an intellect. What I'm best at is someone talking on a particular topic. I can dissect it. Critical thinking and come up with the objective truth. That's what I want. The objective truth. I don't get into this, well, agree to disagree stuff. No. That doesn't solve any problems. And that's what I'm into, solving problems. So that's why I called it the American Freethinker. That is a free thinker. Some people will argue, well, no. You can't have opinions if you're a free thinker because you always have to be open for it. Well, I disagree. You have to be open-minded to be willing to take in someone's conversation and then dissect it and come up with that objective truth. But if you do it over 25 years or 30 years like I've been doing, eventually you have to come up with an opinion saying, all right, this is the objective truth. This is what my opinion is. How would you not? Do you just always listen and then just forget about what you learned? No, that doesn't make any sense. So that's the American Freethinker. That's how the show is going to run. Now, let me go ahead and give you that phone number. Now, listen. I'm going to give you the phone number, and this isn't my phone number. Obviously, I got it just for the show. I hooked it up by watching YouTube videos on how to take in phone calls. Whether it's going to work the first time, well, I guess we'll find out when it comes in. The phone number, and I'll put it in the chats, 810-348-5807. That's the phone number to call in. Feel free to call in anytime while the show is running, of course, because once the show's off, I close it up. Again, I still don't know if I'm working on Facebook, but I will go ahead and post it there just in case. If there's anybody on Facebook, please let me know. All right, there it is, 810-348-5807. When it rings, I will try to answer it. If you can hear me and then you can hear it through the show, that would be fantastic. I just need someone to let me know by posting it. But I was going to go ahead and practice it, make sure it works, but I had to work today. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to have the show. So, all right. So, the topics today is America, and it's not going to be a history. Oh boy. All right, got a call. Let's see if it works. Hello?
Hello, Rob. This is Mike.
Mike, how you doing? You don't have to give your name, but can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Now what I need to know is if the show, if people can actually hear it online.
Yeah, just wanted to get your take on the Mueller report.
Sorry?
Wanted to get your take on the Mueller.
You know what? Driving all day, I tried to listen to some podcasts. I tried to listen to some of the news, and I've yet to hear anything actually come out. I don't think the AG has actually said anything, actual information from it. There's a lot of speculation, but I really don't know if anything specific has come out. Have you heard anything specific?
Yes, the bar has published that nothing was found that was inflammatory, that Trump has not colluded, and there's nothing to convict him on.
Nothing to convict him on, but is there, what's the best way to put it? Are there things out there that they put in that report stating different things that they couldn't put him in jail for, but they were like right on that borderline? You know how Comey did with Clinton, saying, well, there were things that she did, but we just don't want to go after her for it. Was there kind of things like that left it open, or absolutely nothing really?
There's a lot more to come out about the report. This is just an initial take, and it's just a blurb. But the initial thoughts that Barr gave is just that pretty much what we've already heard, that there was no evidence found for a collusion.
So the AG actually did come out with the statement stating nothing in there.
Yes.
Very good. No, that's...
And no obstruction.
Well, that's pretty much all there was for him, was the obstruction. Did it say anything about the people that did get indicted, as far as the fact that there was nothing had anything to do with collusion?
So far, they're just basically having the language that we need to move on. But my feeling is that they need to follow up with, how did this thing start in the first place, and go after the people that started this. But they're not talking in that direction yet, on at least not what we're seeing on the news.
Well, I think that would be the question I was going to actually come back at you with, is, was there anything pointed out as far as going after, like you said, the people that perpetrated this? I guess I'm going to call it a hoax. I think everyone kind of knew it was, except for the hardliners, the never Trumpers. They're the only ones that really kept saying that, yeah, there was something, and they keep getting excited about it. But I think most people pretty much realize that that's, from the start, it was kind of a hoax. But then why? Why was it a hoax? Why would they even do anything like this? My personal opinion, and again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist usually, but my opinion is that they were hiding everything they did prior to him actually getting elected. So all the stuff they did to Trump the candidate, all the spying, the dossier, all the people involved. There was a lot of information out there because they figured when Hillary won, which everyone thought she would, well, I didn't, but most people thought she would, there was a lot of information out there, a lot of stuff that could get them all in trouble. So it was always my opinion that they basically started this for one reason and one reason only, and that was to cover up all the bad stuff, all the illegal stuff, the treasonous stuff that went on prior to him getting elected. And when he won, boy, it was all over at that point. They knew that they were in trouble. So for 2 years, they've been covering all that up. That's just my opinion. What do you think?
Well, that's exactly what happened. And what we need now is for the Republicans not to be satisfied with just having this be declared not collusion and just move on. Because if they don't make an example of the people that perpetrated this hoax, then they'll do it over and over again, and we'll never be rid of these lies and deceptions, and they need to move. They need to make sure they don't just move on, and they need to convict all these people that started this.
And you would give that a percentage of what happening? What kind of percentage would you give that anything will ever come out of this whatsoever?
So if we go back in the past, we can go through the things that Hillary Clinton did with the uranium. We can go through the things that Obama did with giving all that money to Iran. And you can go back to Benghazi. And what happens over and over again is there's so much noise that's made on television, but at the end of the day, there are no convictions. And so if we go down the same road that we've been going down for years now, there'll be no significant convictions except for maybe a couple of low down people in the totem pole, and not the people that are, high up on the list that should be convicted.
That was kind of concentrating on Clinton. Personally, I think they're still too strong politically to have anything happen. They don't like to get at each other because they all have dirt on each other. So I personally don't think I don't think any of that would happen. But what I'm worried about as well, or maybe in the forefront, would be the FBI, DOJ, CIA, all the different people like the Brennans that were kind of at the forefront of this and started it. There's I used to be able to remember all the names of all the different the FBI, the guy and the girl that kind of started a love affair. You had Comey, you had started with an M. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Peter
Strzok, and Lisa Page.
Lisa Page.
And then you had Comey, Brendan. You had, I mean, you had there's a married couple. I think the guy was the head of the DOJ. His wife actually works for the company that did the uranium one. So that's who I'm curious. The guy from Britain that actually was supposedly wrote the dossier.
Yeah, Steele.
Is Britain going to give him up? That kind of stuff. Do you ever listen to it? If you really want to know the details about this stuff, there's a guy named, and I mentioned his name earlier, called Dan Bongino. You ever heard of him?
I'm not sure.
Are you if you're listening to podcasts, you can do it on either through YouTube, but type in Dan Bongino, and for the last year or so, he just did a hard dive into all of this. He's an ex New York police officer. He's an ex Secret Service guy, and it's incredible the dive he does. And he points it all out. He actually wrote 2 books on the subject. So go ahead and look that up. You'll get all the information you need.
It's a good idea.
Anything else on the Mueller report, or you all good?
Yeah, I appreciate your take on this, but it's something that it's really going to be irritating for me and everybody else they just drop this subject and not go back and convict all these people that created this this false story, and then got away. And if they get away with presenting that to the FISA court, because FISA court is, you know, so powerful and untouchable, and something that goes up to that court should be considered very serious. And so for them to not take this seriously and not go back and follow up on this, it's I think that's going to be a huge problem for America.
I agree, but I'll give it about a 10% chance that anything comes out of it. I think there'll be some show courts on it. I think there'll be some, some nice little hearings maybe to make it look like the Republicans are doing anything. But I have zero faith in the Republican Party. I just don't. They never stand up. They're never strong. They always just want to get along, and they don't want the media to be mad at them. So I personally give it about a 10% chance that anything will come of it. That's just me, my opinion.
I agree.
All right. Thanks for calling, man.
Hey, thank you.
Bye. Fantastic. I think that might have actually worked. That makes me extremely excited. All right. That's going to be the funnest part, is going from a phone call to remembering where I was. I'm going to have to maybe come up with a system for that, but I enjoyed that. That was really good. I think I'm going to enjoy this live stuff. I might not be good at it for a while. I might not remember exactly what to say. Not as good as I do when I'm truck driving and ranting in my own head. But I'll try. Here we go. So the first topic was America. Now, side note, I plan on going for at least an hour or so each day, minimum, unless I get phone calls. And I'll go as much as 3 hours. It doesn't matter, because I enjoy the conversation. That's what I enjoy. So, back at it. Remember, phone number 810-348-5807. If you actually watch this on Facebook, make sure you like it, hopefully. Share it, hopefully. And I'll go ahead and get right on it. If you have Democrat friends that like that, well, Democrat friends, if they vote for Democrats still, because that's actually the center point to my entire show. If you do know Democrats, sure, tell them, hey, you like to debate, you like to talk politics, watch this guy and call in, make him look bad, see what they can do. Like I was saying, and I forgot to bring this up. The center point for this entire show pretty much revolves around one thing. Every topic will revolve around one thing. And I don't mean this sarcastically. And that is, why are you still voting Democrat? Okay? And I'll go ahead. My two topics, of course, are America and the Democrat Party. They will probably bleed into each other, but I'll go America, then the Democrat Party. But again, the center theme is, why are you still voting Democrat? I want to talk to Democrats and ask them, okay, tell me why, and then have them talk about some topics, like the topics like I'm talking about. And there's hundreds of them at least, anywhere from abortion to the federal tax code, to the EPA, to the Federal Department of Education. I mean, all this stuff. I truly believe that 70 to 80% of people who vote Democrat do so because, I don't know, for example, their dad told them to, or their union rep told them to, or they went to college and their professor told them to, and they don't really care enough to get into it. They don't want to have the back and forth. Whether they know, well, they don't know enough, and so they don't want to get embarrassed. But I think the ones that are like me, just an average guy, all right? I don't have any specialties other than maybe critical thinking. I do believe I'm a little bit of doctorate's degree in critical thinking. No such thing, but okay. I just don't think that they think about the topics enough. They've been taught to hate. They've been taught that the Republicans are, well, name the ist, racist, fascist, misogynist, whatever ist it is, and they're told don't even talk to them because what's it matter? They're evil people. But the majority, I truly believe that the majority of just average, normal people like myself go to work every day, pay their bills, have their friends. I truly believe that they believe the same way I do on most of these topics. 70 to 80%. I really do. And when I talk to people who vote Democrat, they usually can't, first of all, defend their point. Or they tend to kind of move more and more like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. But I still vote Democrat. And I don't understand that. I think it's because they truly don't realize how far left the Democrat Party has gone, how crazy they have gone, how closer to socialism they have gone. I don't think they believe that. So, and I'll get into that as I discuss the Democrat Party. But that's why I say 70 to 80%. 70 to 80%. Because that other 20 to 30% truly are that hard left. That is the politicians, your movie stars, which movie stars, I don't think they really know much about it anyways, or your professors. I could spend an hour on just how bad professors are and how little they actually know when you actually question them. But okay, that's enough. I think I beat that one to death. So, America, again, it's not going to be I'm not going to start with a history lesson. We don't need that. I'm talking more along the lines of the social, what the America stood for, and how bad it's gotten, how down it's gotten. And I'm going to rant a little bit about where we're at today on that. This is my opinion of where we are at today on this. And I believe it's a lack of the morals and our initial foundation. And what I mean by that is they say that the Roman Empire fell not from without but from within. Not from anyone being able to take them over physically because they were too strong. America is that same way. We're not going to get beat militarily. We're too strong for that. Although our politicians are weak when it comes to that, our military cannot be touched. So it's going to be from within. And we have been getting beat up from within since the 20s and 30s when the Marxist, the Bolshevik Revolution, when all that happened, plenty of people in the United States started thinking, maybe Marxism's pretty good. Maybe that's the way to go. And obviously they have been infiltrating ever since. They've been trying to take over because that's what they think. They want the whole world to be their European socialism, even though it keeps failing all over the world. But again, that's another story. So again, the morals and ethics, and this is going to get a little touchy on this part, but hey, I'm going to be honest when I'm here, and this may get me in some troubles, but oh well, we need to talk about this stuff. I believe that a lot of it has to do with the weakening of manhood. Okay, as men, we were weak to allow a lot of this stuff to happen. And what I mean by that is this. Prior to women able to vote, when women came on the picture, and I'm not talking about them not being able to vote or they can vote, obviously I'm not going that. But when the feminist movement started, it was good. We would call that first wave feminism. it was good. They just wanted rights. But what confuses me about that is, and I think she was probably at the beginning of it as well, but she brought in something to the feminist movement that I just don't understand how it ever got there, and that was Margaret Sanger. And I start back with this only to kind of get a start of why, and I think that we have been weakened as men in this country, and we no longer teach our boys to be men. Margaret Sanger actually came on the scene, and think about this with me, please. Margaret Sanger, back then, everyone that knew her knew that she was about as much of a racist as you could possibly get. She was like into the eugenics. She hated black people. She hated immigrants. And everyone knew that. She was outward about it. She didn't hide it at all. And she brought abortion into the feminist movement. A movement that was all about the rights of women and other different things about feminism. But the first ways feminism was a good thing to happen, to get rights. But, and I try to picture this. I actually sit back and I'm like, okay, let me picture this. They're in a room together, and the feminist leaders are talking to the women that are there, and they're saying, okay, well, as feminists, we're going to do this, we want this, we want this. And I mean, did Margaret Sanger just kind of jump out and say, hey, how about we murder our unborn babies? What do you think? I can't imagine that that's the way it went. I mean, I just can't. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that she just came right out and said that, and that they would say, oh, yeah, let's see, the right to vote and kill our unborn babies. No, that doesn't make sense. I'm getting into the abortion topic. I don't want to, because that's actually the topic for next week. But then or did she just kind of start slowly putting it in there? Hey, women's rights, contraceptives, and then built up to, oh, hey, let's murder our babies. And then all of a sudden, somehow, the leadership then went to all the women around the country. I'm going to move on from this one point because I'm getting into the abortion, and I talked abortion for a week. But what really confused me about them doing that is that not only did the leaders, which were probably, they probably were the group that thought there was too many people anyways. There was probably some racists in the group like Margaret Sanger who only did it because they wanted less black babies and less immigrant babies. But, and this is where I get to the men failed at this point, is then they came to the men and said, vote this in. We want equal rights. We want, contraceptives. We want to be able to own whatever. They want all their different rights. Oh, and we want to be able to murder our babies before they're born. What do you think? You'd have to be a pretty weak man to be able, sure, why not? Why is that wrong? But also, I think I know what it was. I think the Democrat Party, which at that time was still strongly racist, they were still the party of Jim Crow, the party of the KKK, and I think that group saw the benefits like Margaret Sanger did. But the men of the country still had to allow it. We went from a group of men that would wear suits. I mean, most men wore suits, and they went to work every day, and the women stayed home and took care of the children. And that's how our society and our culture was built. And I'm all about equal rights, but I'm also all about a strong American society and culture. And somehow the men of our country, and everyone knows it, I mean, the millennial men compared to the men of the 20s and 30s, are you kidding me? There's just not enough men out there teaching their sons to hunt and to fish and to build cars. And men, that's what we do. We tear things apart, we put them back together, and we protect things. That's what we do. Women are sensitive. They're kind. They're nice. They're gentle. They can raise the kids. And our culture of America, the way we were, and it was the woman who has the strength to raise the kid, the man who has the strength to go out and get the job and pay the bills. We've gotten away from that to the point where it's no longer a positive thing. I'm fine if someone doesn't want to have kids. Fine, go right ahead, live your life. It's freedom. It's America. That's what it's all about. But we went from people just doing that, with the majority of people having families and the mother staying home and taking care of the kid and raising them with their values. We went from that being normal to that being looked down upon. Why is that? How did that get to the point where it got looked down upon? I don't know. But that's kind of my rant about why and what the main problem of this country is that there's not enough men standing up and saying, no, abortion's wrong. No, I'm going to raise my kids. We went from the 60s, where we had single digit of white people having single parent households to mid 20s. The black population went from the mid 20s to over 75%, where the men are not in the family. They're not in the household. Why? How did it get like that? Well, as a nice transition, that was the Democrat Party. That was their view. That's what they wanted to do. And again, I go back in the circle about what the entire theme of all my topics are, and that is, why are you still voting Democrat when the Democrat Party was the party of slavery, was the party of the KKK, was the party of Jim Crow, and it was the party in the 60s that said, hey, if we just give the black community and the minority community everything and all the money and get them hooked on government programs, that it'll destroy their family and they won't be strong anymore, and they'll still vote for us. That was Lyndon B. Johnson that said, we'll have them voting for us for the next 200 years. Look at your history of the Democrat Party before you decide, oh, I think I'll vote for the Democrat Party. And you'll say, well, that was a while back ago. No, they just went from cotton plantations to urban plantations. Same thing. They still got the people hooked on the government instead of the slaveholder. Think about it. So now let's go back to the history of America. And remember, the phone number, 810-348-5807. If you just hate what I say and you can't take it no more, call in and tell me why I'm wrong. All these topics. Or you agree with me, or you just want to talk about something else that's on your mind that you think is important, whether it be political, social, or personal. Like I said, I'm a cross between Ben Shapiro and Dr. Phil. And why am I like that? How can I help answer personal problems? Well, you put everything through that filter of a free thinker. Rational, logic, you dig into it, and you use critical thinking. And that will pretty much solve most problems, political, social, or personal. All right. Now the history of America as far as why we are not a racist country. Let's start with that, because that's the big one. And I've been in many history courses, and people always try to bring up that we are a country of racists. We began as a racist country, and we've always been that way. Well, let's go with the facts. Just a few facts. First of all, we did not start off as a racist country. Think about it, people. Slavery has been going on since the beginning of time. Just about every race of people, every ethnicity of people, every group of people have been enslaved at one time or another throughout history. That's a fact. America had slavery in it well, I hate to say America, this continent, the North America, had slavery in it for 150 years before we became America. So for 150 years, who brought slavery into this? That would be England. That would be the Danes. I believe it was the Denmark. They're really good at the slave ships, and those people brought the slaves into this continent. So it's the English that were into the slavery. 150 years before we even became a country. Well, what about the Constitution? What about that? What about all those old white dudes that they didn't stop slavery? Well, first of all, we would not have been a nation. So I know that's the same argument that you always hear. We would not have been a nation if we didn't allow the southern states that were the ones that needed slavery. And that's fine. That is a good argument. They had to put certain things in there in order for them to agree to become part of the nation, in order to fight in the Revolutionary War, which we obviously wouldn't have won. But most of the what we call them the forefathers, even the ones that had slaves, all but Jefferson looked to get rid of their slaves at one point or another. Remember, this was a group of people that slavery was a part of the fabric. They were actually forced to keep slavery even before the Revolutionary War. There was plenty of colonies that were trying to get rid of the practice of slavery, stop bringing slaves over, but England wouldn't allow it. The king wouldn't allow it. So when we actually did get together and they did put stuff in there, if you actually know what you're talking about, they were put in there to try to eventually get rid of slavery, which is why we ended up having the Civil War in the first place. Because those things were put in there to try to get rid of it. Again, most of the forefathers got rid of them. They got rid of their slaves. They knew it was wrong. All of their writings. Jefferson was the only one that you could say actually at some point had that white supremacist thought. He had read up on a lot of people that went into deep Africa. He kind of dived into that and came up with some bad thoughts. Even he has, all his writings would say, I wish this wasn't the case. I wish we didn't do this. I wish we didn't have slavery. Check out his writings. So now we move forward. Again, America didn't cause slavery. America got rid of slavery. And this is another fallacy. The South wasn't slavery. It wasn't the South that fought the Civil War. It wasn't even, I don't even call it the North versus the South. If you look back in your history and you actually look at it, I think it's like 20% of people actually owned slaves in the South. What actually happened was the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party, so I can remember the names here. I don't want to lose out on it here. You had the two founders of the Democrat Party. And it was basically, and that's what they say, they were basically the founders, Martin Van Buren and Andrew Jackson. Now, Martin Van Buren, who was he? He was the first one that really started what would be called a political machine. Okay? You ever heard of Tammany Hall, maybe? There's a really good movie about it. The Gangs of New York, I think, which really showed what Tammany Hall was all about. And what that was, and this is Martin Van Buren really is one that got started, and trust me, when you start hearing this stuff, you're going to be like, wow, that's a lot like the Democrat Party now. Again, why are you still voting Democrat? That's the whole thing I'm about. Martin Van Buren had a great idea. All the immigrants that were coming in, he would go to them and promise them a job or help them find food and clothing, help them kind of get along as long as they voted for him. Now, Martin Van Buren didn't do it. Martin Van Buren had what would be called handlers. These are people that would be given a good life be given money if they went to the immigrants and brought so many votes to Martin Van Buren. And everybody who supported Martin Van Buren would get these benefits. They would get federal money for these immigrants. It would come to their political party, and boom, there's the political machine. Everybody got a taste of it. All they had to do was get that immigrant vote. So they would then go and say, okay, come on, immigrants, we're going to put you up here, gives you a job here. And if they didn't do that, they were shunned, and nope, you don't have a job. That's Martin Van Buren. He wanted to find a way to get that connection along with the slaveholders. Andrew Jackson came in, won the presidency, and boom, you had the Democrat Party. It was the Democrat Party that kept the slaveholders going. It was the Democrat Party that gave slaveholders a voice. It was the Democrat Party that when they started feeling the pinch, that they were losing power, that they were going to not be able to sustain because they saw, the Constitution and all these laws that were trying to be slowly stop slavery. It was the Democrat Party leaders that started the Civil War. It wasn't the Southern people. The Southern people fought because a bunch of Northerners were coming down there. That's your normal, your Civil War veteran, your Southern veteran, your Confederate soldier was a farm boy, a farmer, who all of a sudden here comes the Northerners telling us what to do. They kind of got caught up in it. It was the Democrat Party that started it, and it was the Republican Party that tried to end it. Right? The Republican Party started getting power, started getting going. Abe Lincoln was the first Republican president. So it was the Republican Party fighting against slavery and the Democrat Party fighting for slavery. That's the Civil War. It's not America. America is not racist. It's the Democrat Party that actually brought in this idea of white supremacy. It was the Democrat Party, again, that after the Civil War, after they lost, and Reconstruction began. Well, who was doing the Reconstruction? Oh, the Republican Party. And the ex-slaves were actually started doing good. If you look back in your history, most people that were slaves at one point actually end up becoming leaders eventually. They actually end up, for some reason, and it's like I'm not sure what the proper term is, but not an anomaly, but most group of people throughout history that were at one point slaves ended up ruling that area. Whether it's actually by political they ended up ruling it, or just by doing good financially as a group, they did. And the ex-slaves were doing it as well during Reconstruction. But guess what? The Democrat Party were the ones that stopped it. They're the ones that kept fighting. They weren't going to give it up. Even though they lost pretty much the entire South during Reconstruction. All they had was a few in the North. They still had the people. They still had the connections down there. They still had the group. They still had the Democrats. And then all of a sudden, they needed a strong arm. I wish I could think of what that was that they put together. That was their strong arm that really scared people from voting. That made it where the North got sick and tired of it and could. Oh, that's right, the KKK. The KKK. That was the Democrat Party. Not America. America has its ideals. America has its beliefs. America is a belief. Free markets, freedom, rugged individualism that the left laughs at, but that's very important. Rugged individualism. That's America. Racism is Democrat Party. They began supporting slavery. Then when the Civil War ended and they lost, they stopped the ex-slaves that were starting to, and they did. They actually had politicians in the South that were black. They actually had business owners. They were starting to move into it. They were starting to do good. And then the Democrat Party stopped it. Why? White supremacy. Democrat Party. Not America. And most people don't even understand that. They don't even realize that. Why else would you vote for a party that was doing this? They don't realize that. Well, then the KKK came in. Boom. Reconstruction got shut down. And then from that up until the 20s and 30s and 40s, they just were kept still. That's what's so amazing. They still started doing strong. They still had strong communities. They were building. They were going to college. The North, for the most part. But they were doing good. Everything was still coming together, even though the Democrat Party was fighting against it. Along came Wilson, progressive, horrible racist. He started implementing stuff that would try to slow down this pace. And then FDR came along. FDR looked at Martin Van Buren's local, the political machine. How did he do it? Tammany Hall. How did he do it? And he turned it nationally. And he started getting bosses all over the country that would, whether it's the immigrants or he started trying to get the black vote. Well, why did he start having to get the black vote? Because the white people in the South saw how they were treating the black people, and they stopped voting Democrat. Real simple. That's that. Look at the numbers. Look at the voting from the early 1900s through the 20s, through the 30s, and then the 40s came, and it went from like 100% Republican to maybe 80% Republican, then 30, maybe 70% Republican. Because they were promising freebies to the ex-slaves and the second removed generation that were still struggling. And they said, okay, even though it's the Democrat Party, we need help. So they did. And that's how they started getting the vote. It wasn't America being racist. It was the Democrat Party. Then all of a sudden, of course, that's FDR. Bit by bit, that started tearing apart this strong community of people that were trying to work their way out of this situation. And it pretty much stayed the same until 60s. Civil rights. Well, let's look back at the 13th and 14th Amendment and the civil rights voting. You'll never guess who voted against the 13th. I believe it's the 13th and 14th Amendment. You'll never guess who voted against that, which was giving slaves the rights and women rights. Yeah, the Democrat Party. Even in the 60s, it was Republicans that were putting in Civil Rights Act bills. They were trying, and the Democrats would vote them down. Kennedy came along, and again, when I say, why are you still voting Democrat? This isn't your Democrat Party of Kennedy. Kennedy would be what a Republican is now. Most of the Republican politicians now are very moderate. I don't know if there's any extremists in the Republican Party. You have some conservatives, but none of them are just extremists. Where the Democrat Party, that's all. They've always had extremists. Throughout the history of the Democrat Party, it's been extreme things. Again, back to FDR, that's when the whole socialism, the whole Marxism started kind of taking hold. Okay, then you have McCarthy, which people laugh at McCarthy and they think bad things about McCarthy, but he was right. You look back with all the information we have, and yeah, he was right. They have infiltrated the highest parts, and that's the socialism part and Marxism. So now you have the black community trying to push forward. And then you have the 60s, and you have a guy named, what was his name? Yeah, LBJ. He's the one that said, we'll implement these welfare, we'll give them jobs as much as we can, we'll give them money, as long as they don't have husbands or fathers in the household, because if you do, then he's going to make money and you don't get no more money. Bit by bit, and he just, boom. I believe the Great Society, the Great Deal. Again, not being able to come up with the words I want. But On a quick side note, remember, if you want to try to post something, go ahead. I wouldn't mind if someone kind of posted something just to make sure I know. Yeah, Van Buren was after Jackson, and I know that it was Van Buren that was the power, and he was the one that was able to get Jackson into it, helped him get elected by this Democrat Party by uniting the North, which was his political machine, with the South, which was the slaveholder group. He put them together. Andrew Jackson gets elected. Hopefully I'm still active here. Looks like I'm still doing pretty good. All right. Continuing. So we're at LBJ. And this is where, if you talk to people, and I've always, even before I really started looking into it, it always confused me how people could think that all of a sudden there was this great swap. That all of a sudden every single Democrat politician went from being party of the pure racist, white supremacist, KKK, Jim Crow laws, just like overnight became the angels and just cared about everybody. And you have a Democrat and a Republican Party that was always for inclusion and getting rid of slavery and voting for equal rights. And every single one of them became a hardcore racist. Like literally, that's what people believed. And when you talk to these professors at college that are supposed to be so smart, and you actually talk to them, they will tell you that's what happened. And then when you bring that up, they're, move on. I even before I really started diving into it and looking into the facts, for instance, of all the Democrat politicians, only one, maybe two, actually switched over to the Republican Party. Strom Thurmond. He's the only one, I think. Maybe another one. I can't remember. So it's not that all the racist Democrat politicians left and went to the Republican Party, and maybe the few good Republicans went to the Democrat Party, and now the Democrat Party cares and the Republicans hate, because that didn't happen. They didn't. They remained loyal Democrats their whole life. You know, there's a gentleman, I believe, West Virginia, I believe. They actually still have like roads named after him and statues, called Robert Byrd. He was actually a member of the KKK. And right till the end, Clinton and Obama praised him as just the stalwart of the Democrat Party. And they just ignore the fact that this guy was part of the KKK. His statues are still up, but, you know, some of those poor Confederate soldiers that were just fighting because they were told to, or people were coming into their land, they get statues broken all the time and grave markers kicked and broke. But no, Robert Byrd remained a Democrat. I think he coined the term white N-word maybe 10 years ago. But he still remained the Democrat, leader of the Democrat Party. So once again, my same question. Why are you still voting Democrat? That's my question. And it'll be the question on every single topic that I do. And another side note, remember, if you're listening to this or you end up listening to it on Facebook, please like it, share it, especially if it's your Democrat friends. If it's Facebook, subscribe. Subscribe to my YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube, but you have to hit the notification bell. That way, whenever I go live, you'll get notified. Because, you know, you don't want to miss this. You can tell, obviously, this is going to be a huge hit. I will be here every week. End of side note. So, now we're at the point where LBJ, he did what he did to get the black community to start voting for Democrats. We already know that the white South got sick of the Democrats. because of how racist, and they were just constantly causing problems in voting booths. You have to remember, it wasn't just black people that were being terrorized by the KKK. White sympathizers, the white people that were like, stop, let's come together as a nation, they were getting killed and harassed as well. So they were getting sick and tired of the KKK and the Democrat Party as well. That's why they started turning into the voting for the Republican Party, which is why they needed the black community and minorities to strongly to vote for Democrats. And it's a sad thing. It's a sad thing that the black community has leaders such as the Sharptons and the Jacksons. Remember when I mentioned Tammany Hall and how that got really big? How Van Buren would have his bosses that go around and they're the ones that actually got the votes? Well, guess who did that as well? Yeah, the black leaders, the Jesse Jacksons, the Al Sharptons. Now, maybe when they first started, obviously, I think Jackson was actually marched with MLK, and I think he actually kind of split from MLK because he was like, let's do it the good way. Let's not fight back. Eventually, people will see how bad they're getting treated, and we'll have our civil rights. Jackson didn't like that. He was more of the extremist. He was more of the let's hit back. I'm not blaming in any way, shape, or form. I probably would too. But the problem is when all this ended, when there was no more systemic racism, instead of stopping, instead of praising it, instead of saying MLK's dream finally came true, they doubled down. They basically took over. Where in the back of in the olden days, the Tammany Hall bosses, they took over that role. They became people who went to the community, got votes, and made sure the Democrats kept their vote, and they got to live a good life. Show me where I'm wrong. Prove me wrong. How is anything that I've said so far wrong? Especially about Jackson and Sharpton, and then, of course, the people that came under them and saw what was happening. They're like, hey, I want some of that too. And so now they're doing it as well. The so-called black leaders. Well, I think if you talk to most of the actual good, the people, the people, if you ask them, I think they wouldn't like Jackson and Sharpton either. I just have a funny feeling. I think they're part of that 80% of Democrats that still vote Democrat, that if they actually talk to people, if they actually talked about the topics, that they would bit by bit realize, something's not right here. Again, all the way from abortion to federal taxes, that's what it would. They would start realizing it. We just have to get them to talk. So if you are not a Democrat voter and you know some friends, start engaging softly, not arguments. Ask them, and then ask them to defend what they're saying. Because I will probably get heated at different times when I'm talking about my topics. I will get heated at times, especially when I get into stuff like abortion and the welfare system and how bad it is. If I can remember what I want to say. But when I talk to people, I don't do that anymore. I got sick of that in Facebook, arguing with people posting still amazes me that Facebook. I think we should outlaw posting political stuff on Facebook and leave that to people saying, hey, I drank coffee this morning and it was great, or pictures of family members to each other. Obviously, I'm being facetious, but it's almost useless, which is why I started this. Now, may never happen, but I'm hoping over time that people who feel the same way I do, if we get enough eyes and ears on it, will form a community, like I said, of people that want to talk to each other, that want to discuss politics, that want to discuss it openly, not be fearful of anything. And bit by bit, maybe we can start actually changing some minds of those people that, for whatever reason, still vote Democrat. Okay, so I've talked about America and its ideals and how it's not a racist, anyist. It's an idea. That it's actually the Democrat Party that was the racists, the white supremacists, that caused the Civil War. It was the Democrat Party that stopped when during Reconstruction, when the black community, the ex-slaves, actually were starting to get strong and build up, like all other groups that were at one point slaves throughout history. And then the Jim Crow laws that stopped them in the South from getting stronger. It was the Democrat Party that on purpose started getting them to vote for Democrats by taking the help that they needed at the time, that got them to vote for them. So it wasn't America that was racist. Again, it was the Democrat Party. So again, I keep saying the word again. I'll work on that. To go back to what I want as the show to be, I want it to be relaxed, to be, think of it as your friends, your family, sitting at a bar, talking about politics and solving the problems of America. That's what I want this to be. I'm going to continue doing it every week. Hopefully, bit by bit, we can actually get people that enjoy it. Hopefully, we can get people to actually call in and get things off their chest. I'm telling you, it feels good. It feels good to get some stuff off your chest instead of posting it on Facebook and then just getting upset with how dumb people are on the other side. So if you're on Facebook, please like it, share it. If it's YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. I think I'm going to go ahead and end it here. No phone calls. I've talked about my 2 topics. Next week, it will be abortion and the fake idea of poverty and the whole welfare program. And I'll probably talk about how men need to be men more. But thanks for listening if you were on Facebook or YouTube. I appreciate it. Hopefully you'll be back next week. I am going to start doing daily rants. Not live, but posting just daily 1 to 5 minute daily rants, since I don't talk about daily politics here. Thanks again, and hopefully I will talk to you later.